realised you were waiting. I was outside having a coffee. So anyway, I'm in my day job an entrepreneur, and the Global Drug Commission was set up by 12 ex-presidents, quite a few from South America. I think some of you just seen the film, so you know about the Global Drug Commission. And hello, and they wanted an entrepreneur or a business person to sit on their panel, and I was delighted to accept. And we spent the last 3 years looking at the war on drugs, and it's obviously been a abysmal failure. And so we've been trying to find alternative ways of addressing the problem. And in a nutshell, we feel very strongly that countries that are either regulating or decriminalising are finding it much more effective than countries like Sweden that are trying to, continuing to try to stamp out the drug problem. So I spend quite a lot of my time, traveling the world, having debates like we're going to have today, and trying to get the message across. And I think slowly but surely, the mood is changing. The wonderful thing from the Commission's point of view is that we're having different states and different countries trying different experiments. And so in 2 or 3 years' time, we're going to be able to see which approach is best. Is the Portuguese approach best, where for the last 13 years they put nobody in prison for taking drugs? If somebody has a heroin problem, there are clinics where they can go to get their fix and their clean needles. It's been proven to be a very good approach. 13 years ago, hundreds of people were dying every year from heroin overdoses. Last year, less than 10 people died, or around 10 people died in Portugal from heroin. Sweden, that does not have places that people can go to get their heroin fix, the figures have gone the other way, and over 400 people died from taking heroin last year. That's the difference. 10 people in Portugal, very similar population, over 400 people in Sweden. The amount of people breaking and entering in Sweden is still very large because it costs a lot of money to get your heroin fix in Sweden. In Portugal, it's disappeared. And anyway, that's one kind of drug. Since decriminalisation in Portugal, the amount of people taking marijuana has not increased more than anywhere else on average in the world. So we're hoping to see more experiment in different states, different countries, and then and definitely a different approach to the war on drugs. Thank you.
Okay, I forgot to present the other panelists. David Lega, Deputy Mayor of Gothenburg from the Christian Democrats, and also Vice Chairman of the National
of the Party.
Yes, the party. And then we have Professor Ted Goldberg, Professor of Sociology, Associated Professor Stefan Borg from the Karolinska University Hospital of Stockholm, and then Ali Reunanen, Vice Chairman of KRIS, Criminal Revenge in Society.
Return. Criminals return into society.
Okay, good. So, I go for David Lega. As a politician, you also saw the film, you now heard what Sir Richard Branson said. What is your idea?
Well, I think that this is an important issue that we need to address and discuss. But also I would like to point out that this is not my main issue. My main issue as a politician, as deputy mayor of Gothenburg and vice chair of the party, is to make Sweden the best place in the world for young children to grow up in. And this is one issue that will always affect us all, compared to other questions as well that will be also very important, like entrepreneurship, businesses, healthcare, school issues. All these questions together are what matters for the children in Sweden. So this is one where I'm here to learn, to listen, but also to take the debate, since I'm not confident that legalization is the best way to go, as you know from before. But I'm happy to be here and take part of the discussion.
Okay, Professor Ted Goldberg, what is your opinion?
Well, I'd like to start by asking the question, why are so many parts of the world giving up on prohibition? And the answer is very simple. It doesn't work. That's why you've seen that. We saw that in the movie today. But I'll just take a few of the examples from Sweden so you can see what it looks like here. Prohibition has not stopped the use of narcotics in Sweden. We have over 1 million people who have used illegal drugs in this country. Well over 1 million people. It hasn't stopped access to drugs either. A study by CAN said that amongst 16 to 24-year-olds in this country, more than half of them say that it's easy for them to get hold of illegal drugs in their local environments. It hasn't stopped the violence in Sweden either. Of course, it's nothing like Mexico or the rest of South America, as we've seen. And it's very easy here in Sweden to say, well, 70,000 dead in Mexico, that's not Sweden. But we're sitting here in Gothenburg now, and there are many shootings going on in the suburbs of Gothenburg. Now, what do you think those shootings are about? Do you think they're killing each other over the right to sell my Blomor? Is that what you think? Or are they killing each other because it's a turf war? They're killing each other over who has the right to sell drugs in this area. And that's going to increase. And what's going to happen also is that we're going to start having innocent bystanders who are getting killed. Another thing that isn't working is that we have been giving up our freedoms trying to fight drugs. We've increased laws about bugging, listening to people's telephones, about raiding people's homes. A lot of the securities that we've always had in Sweden are being lost now in the name of fighting drugs. We're also supporting the organized crime. And I'm not going to say anything about that now because you saw it all in the movie, the way organized crime is becoming wealthy. And the final thing I'll say just as this introduction is that I have to correct you a little bit, Richard. The number of people who died in drug-related deaths in Sweden last year was 589. 589.
About 2 years. Mine's
2 years old.
2 years old.
Yeah. Well, now you have the new number. 589.
That is horrendous.
Yeah, that's horrendous. And I just want to compare that with something else so you can get an idea of what that number is. That is 2.5 times the number of people who died in traffic accidents. Okay, I'll stop there for the time.
Okay. I think you, as a user, ex-user, as the last person. Stefan Borg, as the doctor.
Yes, that's my background looking into this this problem. We have seen, as you stated here, an increasing number of drug-related deaths in Sweden for many years now, at least, and especially in the last 3 years. And it's in the same time that we have been working with treatment of opiate addicts in a more medical way with so-called LARA programs. And you can ask yourself, why does this happen? There are patients with heroin problems are offered treatment in an evidence-based way. My question is that we don't know. So we don't have the research to know what's happening out there. What's the effect of different actions? We are actually an underdeveloped country concerning these areas. That was stated some years ago in the general inquiry concerning these aspects. Concerning research, concerning treatment, we have lost the contact with the international society. And if treatment is not functioning, we'll have big problems to get prevention functioning, because these are linked together, both practical but also ethical. So I think this is a sign that not only prevention and legislation is a problem in this area, but also treatment is a big problem for us.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Ali, and I'm an addict. I've been living with addiction since I was 14. I'm today 58. I stopped using when I was 37 years old. So I had 23 years of addiction, drugs, alcohol and drugs. But it wasn't always a problem, because in the beginning when I started using alcohol and hashish and some other stuff, it was kind of fun, kind of crazy. I had a lot of fun with it, and it was working very well for me for a few years. But when I was 26, I got into a lot of trouble with, I was in a big accident with, I was almost killed. I was almost breaking my neck. And I usually, a normal person maybe should have started thinking maybe it's something wrong with my drinking, but I didn't. I just changed the drugs from alcohol to start using a lot of cocaine. And then I started using crystal meth, and then amphetamines. And the thing is that that took over my whole life for many years. So in the last 4 years, the thing is that I was working in the music business. Because there was a business where it was very allowing for using alcohol and drugs, and then nobody was really mad about it. So the thing is that in the end I was working for a company called Telstar, and I was touring around the whole world. I was in the States, and I even moved to the States for a while. I was living in Hollywood, and that's where I started using the cocaine. And then the police took me and put me into the prison for 2 times. And when I came out, I went back to Sweden, and didn't tell anyone, but everybody was asking where I've been for the last 9 months, and I said, well, I forgot to call. So that's how my life was. My whole life was controlled by the drugs. But I didn't even recognize, I didn't find out before it was too late. I came back to Sweden and started touring again with different bands all over the world, and in 1990 I didn't have any more work. I didn't get any more work, so the only way I could supply my habit was by selling drugs. So that's what I did for a few years, because it was the only way for me to survive. And that I continued to do that till the 1st of April Fool's Day. And the 8 policemen took me and put me away into isolation for 3 months. And that was the best thing which could happen to me, because that was the first time in many, many years that I got sober, I got clean, I got reasonable thoughts, and I came to one decision, and it was, I need help with this. I need help. And the thing is that I got help. I got to a 2-year sentence, and I got to a prison where they had treatment. And not the treatment with medicine, a treatment without medicine, a 12-step program, and I started changing my life, and I understood that I can't take away the thing that which has been supporting my whole life without putting something else there. So I understood that when I take away the drugs, I have to change my whole way of living. And that's what I did. I started going to meetings, I thought new fellowship, changing my friends, changing places, and suddenly I got a new life. And what happened was that 1997, we were a few of these guys who was meeting at one of these meetings, and we started talking about we have to start helping people who have come into the prison. So we started the organization KRIS, Criminals Returning to Society. Today we are 3,000 to 4,000 people, members, who are trying to help each other to create a place which are totally clean from drugs, from criminality, and from medicines, and from alcohol, from everything. So we're trying to get another way of living. And that has worked very well. So we have a lot of people who are, instead of costing the society money, are instead creating possibilities for other people. And today we have found out that there's a lot of kids who don't feel very well in school and are growing up with bad feelings, anxiety and stuff. So what we are trying to do is to create places for younger people. So we have young KRIS who are helping kids to get another kind of life instead of drugs and criminality. So that's what we are working with today, and we have a lot of work and a lot of, we want to make, because I think we have a wrong way of meeting people today. People don't care for each other anymore, so we don't talk so much. We need to start helping each other, start to have fun without drugs, to have another life without the drugs. So we have to change the attitude in the society, and that's the way. So I think like a lot of people here think they need medicine to get off the drugs. Absolutely. Some people need medicine for a while, but there has to be a way out of these medicines, because I've been shamed my whole life. From the beginning, from when I was a kid, there was shame, guilt, and things, and I was afraid of everything. And then there was the drugs for many years, and there was prison. So when I got free, I didn't need to have some kind of medicine from the government to keep me like shamed. Okay. I think freedom is important.
Yeah, I must say I'm on methadone myself since 1998, and I consider myself as a decriminalized opiate user. I don't consider me as in treatment, because I'm still as dependent on opiates as I was, 15 years ago. And that's the same way it works with heroin programs, in my opinion. It helps a lot of people in your way, but it also helps a lot of people to get healthy, start to work, even if they are on drugs. So, David Lega, you had a comment on, I think, the Goldberg, or?
Yeah, I think I got a comment on everyone.
Okay.
But it's really interesting to hear all these different versions as well, because we can always find statistics that will prove a point from each perspective. I think that will be easy to actually find that and dig that out. We all know that the drug use has increased in the world the last years, and in Sweden as well. I don't think that anyone believes that the only reason that it has increased here is because it's still illegal. That is not the main reason. There are other reasons affecting Sweden and how we use it as well. When it comes to the shootings, as you were talking about in Gothenburg, I seriously don't believe that we would solve the shootings in Gothenburg by legalizing crime. That is like putting a Band-Aid on an open wound. Because that is
no one's suggesting legalizing crime.
That would be bad as well. Legalizing drugs, of course. But because when we talk about the shootings in Gothenburg, for example, that is the main problem. There is people feeling left outside the society. That we have failed with embracing the diversity of Gothenburg. So to make everyone feel valued, pressured. We have too high unemployment. These are the factors that will solve the situation in a long time, not legalizing drugs.
Sorry, if I can just, when you say statistics, you can always find different statistics. I mean, I think the Global Drug Commission went into this with an open mind, and I'm not, personally, I don't mind whether. We didn't particularly mind what the end results were going to be in looking at all the facts, but the facts seemed very, very clear. And I just once again, I just want to talk about Portugal. Portugal in say Lisbon, the same. Compare that to Gothenburg. In Lisbon, if you have a heroin problem, you can go to a clinic, government-run, close by where you live, and there you will see a social worker and a psychiatrist, and you will get your drug fix and you'll get your clean needles, and they will help you get off taking heroin. And as a result, the amount of people taking heroin has dropped dramatically, and the amount of people who die from heroin is almost almost a non-event. And because the state are organising these clinics, there isn't an underworld pushing drugs or selling drugs anymore. The state are supplying these drugs for nothing. Maybe it's methadone or whatever the alternative is. And it's working. And I just feel if it's working in Portugal, why shouldn't it work here in Gothenburg?
Can I just reply quickly? Because in Sweden we also have a different background in some countries, needle exchanges, for example, are a good way to actually identifying the users and trying to help them in a long way. But here we have a different social security network, so I don't think there are many drug users here that people are unaware of. We have connections with them, with the social welfare system, the civic society, and they will get the support even without.
Is there a place they can go to get their fix, and are you helping them? But I think that's the critical difference, and that then means I think some of these shootings will go away, because if the underworld is not supplying the heroin, but the state is helping people who've got drug problems, you pull the rug from under the underworld. That's the end of the market.
But also we need to address that problem with a long-term strategy instead. Housing, employment.
No, I'm sure you've got lots of other problems.
That will solve this problem. That's what I mean.
Well, in Portugal, I think they have. They're a poorer country than Sweden, and all I can say is that they've got their drug issues have almost gone away because of the approach they're taking. And I would say, please keep an open mind and please look at what they're doing there and see whether it would work for your city.
Ted and Stefan first, and Ted and Ali. Okay. Responding.
It's if you look what we are offering people with problem, you had 12-step and you had methadone. Most communities in this country only offers one size, and that should fit all. And we are people with many sizes, many needs of different kind, but the patients are not empowered to be able to choose themselves. That's a big problem. We have 284 communities in this country, and most of them are so small that they can afford more than one type of treatment. So if you are lucky, you are living in a methadone community, and if you are lucky, you are living in a 12-step community. So the way of how we treat our patients and people with we have a problem with this way of organizing treatment, actually. And we heard that in the film, too.
I would say to you that I agree with most of what you said. In fact, I've been writing about that for 30 years. But aside from writing books about just that subject, about trying to solve social problems as a way of solving the drug problem, I've sort of come to the conclusion now that we also have to discuss politics. We have to discuss drug policy in itself. And part of the problem is that the rest of the world has now decided that prohibition does not work. We are seeing one country after the other, and I can start reading up names to you, who are deciding that either to decriminalize drugs or to allow medical marijuana, or starting up consumer rooms and things like that. They're experimenting with different kinds of drug policies, not because they know that this is the only answer, but they know that the old answers don't work and we have to try something else. And now I just wrote a book called Legalize Narcotics, with a question mark after it. And I want to say that there is a question mark, not an exclamation point. And the reason I called the book Legalize Narcotics is because I think we have to decide that we have to discuss every single option. We can't close off any option, even the most radical option, that is legalizing everything. And the only way we're ever going to be able to come to a state where we can make a reasonable decision about drug policy is We have to start experimenting in Sweden the same way they're experimenting in the rest of the world. Trying different things and not saying, this is the only answer, this is the right way to go. But we're saying, we're going to try this, and then we're going to have research. We're going to have scientific research that sees what is the result of this. And if the results are bad, then we stop doing it and we try something else. But we need a science-based, experimental drug policy, and one where there's not so much pride that we have to be right and our model is the only one. We have to start admitting that we don't quite know what we're doing, and we have to start experimenting.
I mean, Sweden is considered abroad as a very pragmatic country. Sweden is abroad considered as a very pragmatic country. I mean, paternity leave, etc., etc. We stand up for human rights wherever in the world things is happening. But here in Sweden, we treat drug users very, very bad. I mean,
you've got drugs and prostitution, which you would have expected to be a slightly more liberal approach.
Yeah.
Sweden have gone absolutely opposite approach.
Yeah. And the same way with drug policy. And as I see it, it's a big problem that we much often just talk about treatment. And before you want to go into treatment, it takes years. And during these years, it's so important, if we are pragmatic and we want to stand up for human rights and the right to health, is to have syringe exchange. I believe also in safe injection rooms. And even if there is proof that an injection room really saves lives, as in Copenhagen, I think they had like 100 overdoses and no one died. They would have died on the street. So why don't we start?
Why don't you start here in the city? I mean, I'm being serious. I mean, injection rooms save lives. If you can keep people out of prison and put them into clinics when they're ready to go, it costs a third of the price, so it saves you money as well. And then people can become useful members of society again. If you leave people to use dirty needles, they'll become HIV positive. Their HIV will spread to the general population. They'll get hepatitis. It's going to cost your health service a lot. So, give me a good reason why not.
I want Ollie to respond. Okay, and then
all right. I was thinking of a lot of people we get into KRIS right now are very young, and they also are going on Subutex. And Subutex is often the first drug they're using, and that's bad for what we think. So a couple of years ago, we did in for Almedalen, it's a big politics week, and we did something called government drugs are also drugs. And everybody was screaming, and everybody was really mad about us that we want to kill everybody and everybody should die, but that's not true. The thing is that we want to help people to get new lives and everything. And what we did was that when the drugs from the government, from the programs are leaking out, they start using them as drugs. That's what we said. So after that, they said that all the interviews in that study was from our own group in KRIS, and that was true. So we did a new project, and I went into both prisons, and we met people on the street and in different other organizations who I went to interviewing. We did over 20 very deep interviewing for people who have been in the programs and also have the Subutex and other drugs illegally. And it found out that for these people, there was 100% who was using other drugs at the same time, which is very dangerous if you're having Subutex. That's where people die. It's when they take other drugs to get a better effect. But because it's like everybody, all the drug users or addicts need to have more effect from the drug. So when you have a higher tolerance, you need more drugs. And when the drugs doesn't give you that, you get other drug to get effect. So that's a problem. And I did this undercover. So just a couple of days before we released it, we told the criminal system that this is what we have done, and they said it was okay. So the thing is that that's why I think that it was 127, 112 who died from heroin last year. and it was 176 or 77 who had Subutex in the body. So I think that's dangerous with the medicines who are leaking out and they're using other drugs to get the effect. Thank you.
First, David, and Stefan Borg, you have to reply on all, because you were the head of the substitution treatment in Stockholm for many, many years. But David first.
And I don't agree with the image that is being shown here now that we don't do anything. We do a lot in Gothenburg. We offer with treatment that you were talking about before. We also have counseling, we have support for housing, we have help to get jobs. We also have a lot of support for families around a user. So I think that's important to say as well. It's not that we don't do anything, we do a lot. We just don't want to do that. And I still don't think that we should, because I don't think that we should start experimenting here. We have a lot of research from other countries. We see the effects. We can follow that with actually starting to do experiments with people's faiths that we're here right now. We see different changes in other countries as well. We see in Colorado, for example, that the people have started to change again. Maybe this wasn't such a good idea. They're starting to go towards legal, forbidding it again.
Sorry, you're always going to you're going back to the statistics. It's not the general feeling in Colorado, and I don't think you'll find it'll go back.
We can Google it later.
That's also a scientific way. We need the political support by you and your colleagues, of course. But it's also important that you know what to support, and therefore it's important to be able to have a dialogue between professional people and political people here. And I'm a little afraid when you told that you thought there were effects by housing and employment, because there is no evidence on that in any country except Sweden, that we still believe that this is the case. Please go to and Google again to this. And I think we have to move out and see it's not methadone, it's not that, it's the quality and the possibility to reach people and create a dialogue. Well, you like methadone and you should have that, and other people coming to us, we as in the society we have to be able to offer that in a democratic way, and I don't think we have reached that level in many areas in this country yet, except Sweden, except Stockholm. No, I'm kidding.
Okay, tell. And then Richard.
Yeah, I think we have to look at what's going on internationally. In 1998, the United Nations had something called UNGAS. It's the United Nations Special Session on Drugs, the General Assembly of the United Nations. And at that time, the whole world was basically in agreement that prohibition was the way to go. And there was so much the case that Sweden sent that well-known expert on drugs to represent it, namely Queen Sylvia. Now, in 2016, there's going to be another UNGAS in the United Nations in September of 2016. And the reason we're going to have that is because there are so many countries in the world now who are abandoning prohibition, and we have to decide on something else. And the question is, what does Sweden have to contribute to that? What experiences do we have here in Sweden that we can make some kind of a positive contribution to that UNGAS, which is less than 2 years away? And so I'll say to you, David, to you that no, we can't say everyone else should experiment and we'll follow what they did, we'll learn from them. We have to do something ourselves. And we have to do something ourselves based on our culture, our way of doing things, our understanding. And we have to bring those experiences to the United Nations in 2016. And that means we got to get our asses into gear. Excuse my French.
I find it very, very sad that you say, you know, we will never experiment. I mean, but at the very least, if other people experiment and it works elsewhere, then adopt their experiments. You know, if they've been brave for the last 12 years, then I can't understand why you would say we won't have centres where people can go to get help and get their heroin fixed. Where it works, when something works, why do you say absolutely no to it? I mean, the fascinating thing about this panel is if you look back in old footage of the 1930s in America, there was exactly this kind of debate going on about whether alcohol should be legalized or not. The same arguments were being put up. You know, I mean, okay, you know, in Britain they're allowing drinks, in America we're not. I mean, all the same debate was taking place. And Al Capone was raging on the streets. You know, that America was out of control. And you know, yes, there've been casualties from you know, people being able to drink. But you know, I think I mean, most of us want to have a drink, and most people are not harmed by it. Those people who smoke marijuana, most people are not harmed by it. Yes, there are some casualties, but you know, we need to rethink.
We have another doctor in here. I want to ask you, Martin Goldberg, the head of the syringe exchange in Stockholm, and you also have been working in Australia, where you've seen some of these projects, injection room, etc.
Yeah.
What's your opinion? What's the difference between Sweden and Australia?
No, I'm just first of all appalled by the fact that some people are just ignoring the facts and the research on things and just saying we shouldn't have it and referring to data that's not existing. I think that's bullshit. If you think that you can reach people with the measures we have already and believe that for sure, then we have to rethink, because starting the needle exchange in Stockholm, for example, we reach a lot of people that we haven't reached before. So I think that just saying that you don't need a certain measure, I need to ask you to rethink. And we had a meeting today on trying to implement needle exchange program in Gothenburg, and I didn't see you there, unfortunately, but there was a lot of good information given in reference to research. And this is what I ask you to look into. If you're a politician and you talk for the general public, then you should really look into data and facts. So that's the first thing. And when it comes to me working in Australia, I think that they have a very humane approach to people injecting drugs, for example. And with that, they can achieve more people into treatment, more people to have good life, even though they choose to use drugs, and also get the opportunity to get people into treatment if they want treatment. So, in general, higher grade of life quality.
Richard, I want to ask you, you named Portugal a few times. Is there another country that you can mention?
Well, I mentioned Portugal because it's got a similar population to Sweden, and I think it's about 500,000 difference. So, you know, so people can't say, well, if it doesn't work in Portugal, if it works in Portugal, it can't work here because we've got different different numbers of people. But you know, I think the film shows that, you know, some of the countries where it's working, Switzerland, Germany, you know, Britain haven't officially done it, but they've done it in a major way and unofficially in a lot of cities. And there are definitely other countries who are, but they're the main ones.
Okay. So who to start with? Start from there.
Could I make a quick reply to that?
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
In between, because we do follow it. We do take part. We do listen. Unfortunately, I couldn't make it to that session, but you know that I'm here now to take the debate, right? That's important. And also, I think that we need also to see the opinion in Sweden. Over 90% of the Swedish population is opposed to legalizing drugs. So I'm here to listen as well.
Sorry, I was at a conference earlier today with 2,500 people in the audience, and I just asked one question: do you think drugs should be treated as a health problem or a criminal problem? And I would say 2,500 people put their hands up saying it should be treated as a health problem, and nobody put their hands up.
We do the same here then. How many is in favor for...
How many people think that drugs should be treated as a health problem? How many people think it should be treated as a criminal problem? So, I think it's partly how you ask the question. I'm being a politician.
I know this.
But it's important though, because I think if you don't necessarily have to go, if you find that going all the way to legalization is a problem, decriminalize. And you get 100% votes, and you can achieve an awful lot of what you need to achieve with that first step. And then, I think there are some drugs personally that I think should be regulated, but at least go for the decriminalisation.
Okay, maybe this question is a bit off topic, but you have been speaking about illegal drugs. I would like to know what your approach is, Ted Goldberg, on legal drugs. The thing is that the 10 last years, a lot of people have been dying by designer drugs. What's your approach on that?
To who?
Ted.
Oh, you're talking to me. Okay. Well, I'm certainly not an expert on designer drugs, but designer drugs are designed because we have illegal drugs. If one drug is illegal and people want to use it, and some chemists can design a drug which gives very similar effects, but is not illegal, then you are attracting these people to those drugs. The trouble is that if you get drugs like spice, and spice is not one drug, God knows what's in spice, anything could be in spice, but you get these drugs that are being sold under no regulation whatever. Nobody knows what they're buying. There could be arsenic in those drugs. And so any drug that you have must be regulated as far as I'm concerned. And just having drugs illegal the way we have them now makes a market for unregulated legal drugs, and that's a nightmare as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, so your point is you have to legalize it and regulate it, and then will the problem be fixed?
Excuse me, I don't know if you have to legalize it. I just know it has to be regulated in some way or other. I'm not sitting here saying that we should legalize drugs. I'm saying we need to experiment and try to find ways to deal with drugs. And I'm also saying that anything we decide upon is going to have some casualties. And we also have to decide upon how we're going to help the people who are the casualties.
I think the word legalization is not the good word. I prefer regulation. Okay.
First of all, thank you for coming here, every one of you. I think each one of you earn a big applause. Thank you. I would just like to make a very quick statement about the phrasing of let's try experimentation. I heard this a couple of times this night. I would like to clarify that the Swedish drug policy is a very big experiment. That's also a type of experimentation. One that has been killing people every day for many years now. So let's not quantify the Swedish drug policy as something that should go on forever and we should never experiment. That is also an experiment. Thank you.
First I'd like to comment on David Lega's statement that the unemployment is the reason for the shootings in Gothenburg. I said that unemployed person, they can't afford buying a gun. The reason is the market division between the different criminal gangs in Gothenburg for shooting. Right. So the unemployment isn't the core reason. But the question of David Lega. We have the same policy in Sweden, I'd say at least since Nils Lejerot's times. And the question is, are there any indicators that the policy have helped or that the policy has been successful? Do the politicians measure the policies they are adopting and they are following? And the question is to David Lega is because that his party has been in the office for the past 8 years. So I'd say that, and he's a representative of that party. Thank you.
Yes, we have been in office on a national level, having the government responsibility for 8 years. We've been in opposition in Gothenburg for 20 years. Here the Social Democrats around the country. And I never said that unemployment is the only reason. I said that's one of the factors affecting this, together with all the others, because people are feeling that they are outside of society. And we need to work and address this on many different levels, from schools, from the civil society, from businesses. Creating jobs is one solution, not the only one. But I think that we can always address issues in a short-term or long-term way. And I believe more that we should address it in a long-term way. And that is housing, employment, and feeling a part of society is more important.
I håller med dig. Okej, absolut.
Hello. My name is Stella Matilda. I'm from Cannabisarna. It's a legalization organization in Sweden for cannabis, and I would like to address a few things. First of all, I would like you all to stop talking about users like they were something else than human beings, because we're human beings and we need to be treated like that. And second of all, I talked last week to a person working at the Copenhagen user rooms, and he told me that a really big problem for them today is the young people coming from Sweden who has been thrown out from the methadone programs in Sweden and go to Copenhagen to get their methadone and to use and then go home again. And he politely asked me to address this problem in Sweden and said, maybe you should look at that problem because people are dying because you treat them wrong, and it's young people. And to make the Danish people who use drugs in these rooms are about 40 years of age, but the Swedish people are between 20 and 25. So why are we sending our young kids to Copenhagen and let them take care of our problems instead of taking care of our problems in Sweden?
Hey, can I ask you a question? Would you be allowed to do one of these centres here, if you wanted?
I'm sorry?
Would you be allowed to do a methadone centre here if you wanted?
I don't think so. I'm not sure. I'm looking at someone who knows.
I'm
not sure.
There are methadone programming.
Yeah. Sorry, is it illegal?
No, we have them already.
What's that?
The problem is when you go on a methadone program and you use another drug like cannabis or cocaine and it shows up on the test they take, you get thrown out most of the time. And when you don't get your methadone, you go to Copenhagen, which have a really big market for drugs, and they have user rooms. So they go to Copenhagen to get the methadone, and then they go to the user rooms use, and then go home to Sweden again with the methadone. So, but there's really young users, and it's ages 20 to 25, and it's really young people. And why can't we take care of them? We have the resources, but we just don't use them.
I'm going to answer that as well. In Sweden, it's so different. I mean, it's 120 methadone programs in Sweden, and they are so different. I mean, in Stockholm, it's pretty good today. I mean, so Stefan Borg.
I agree fully with you. It's a big problem with the treatment tradition in the methadone programs, especially as you mentioned, that people who are trying other drugs or get problems get expelled from the programs. And we know that if you're expelled from a methadone program, you get about 20 times higher mortality starting immediately. So, and I can't understand how doctors can think of increasing the mortality risk for their patients that they are treating by doing this. So I hope that with the new guidelines, which are coming in a couple of months, this problem should be addressed and not solved in the way we have this bad tradition.
Ali?
Yes, what I was thinking was the report which I wrote was just a problem that a lot of them got thrown out from these programs. And they got on the street and they started using other drugs. And I remember one young guy, he was 19 years old, I met him in the prison, and he got fentanyl signed up for him from the doctor, and he took an overdose, and he got into respirator. And then he came out and he got the same medicine again from the same doctor, three times in the respirator. And it's really dangerous also what can happen. But the question was this a health problem or a criminal problem? I would say both. There is always will be criminals like us who are trying to make money on this. This is a way, it's a criminal lifestyle also.
That's just the law, you know. The law tells
No.
Because it's the law that tells you that's illegal and that's
No. We will always try to make money either way. We're going to try other ways to get it. We're going to sell it anyway. That's not true. You have cigarettes, it's legal here. You smuggle cigarettes and sell them. Alcohol, the same thing. We're going to do the same thing with drugs.
The market is pretty small.
No.
The white market, yes.
The thing is that when people got it, can you wait for a second? I can explain. When they have people coming into the Subutex program or the methadone program, and they got away from the heroin, and suddenly the heroin dealers, they don't stand and say, whoa, okay, well, I'm going to start selling flowers instead. It doesn't work that way. They start trying to get new clients. And what they did was they were dumping the prices in Stockholm, and they were even giving the heroin away for free to get young kids starting to use heroin. And that's terrible.
But it hasn't happened in Portugal.
No, but it happened in Stockholm.
Where it is the profit. The profit is the problem. Because you make it illegal, you get a profit. And the profit is for the illegal people. And if you make it legal, you can control it.
It doesn't work that way.
You can control it. We have a
I'm sorry, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way.
Yes, it does.
And it's worked in Portugal where you do it for all heroin addicts.
Okay, we have another question here.
Yeah, I find it rather amazing that none of you have mentioned the natural cures and remedies such as ibogaine, psilocybin, DMT, ayahuasca. What are your thoughts on that, Sir Richard, Stefan?
I'm going to go and hand over to a doctor.
If you look for evidence-based treatments, you get some answers, and they are based on group comparisons with other types of treatments or no treatment at all. But then of course you can also look at each individual and see this treatment is functioning for me, for my patient or so. But my point is that we have a tendency in this country to recommend one type of treatment. 90% of all treatment in this country is 12-step treatment, and I think we need more possibilities because 90% of the patients are not in favor of trying this. So that's my very short answer.
What's next? Okay, we have here a question.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I answer?
Yeah, okay, quick.
I'll just give you a quick answer. Yes, we don't have any controlled studies about ayahuasca, ibogaine, LSD, and other things. But in other countries, they're experimenting with that now, where they're trying to use these different psychoactive drugs in treatment, and they're trying to do it in a somewhat controlled way. And that's something that maybe we could do to Sweden also. But not just, in a willy-nilly way. It has to be in a controlled way with baseline and randomized studies.
I just want to say one thing. Richard has to leave in 10 minutes, but we can continue if it's okay for all of you. Okay.
Okay. I'm Christian Engström, former member of the European Parliament for the Pirate Party. I've got a question for the representative for the Christian Democrats. Now, you said Sweden shouldn't be experimenting, which I think is odd, but still you said so. And then you said, so okay, other countries have to experiment. And then you presented with data from those countries, and you say, no, that wouldn't apply, that's not the problem. What kind of evidence, what kind of data, is there anything at all that would convince the Christian Democrats as a political party to, oh yes, there is a better way, let's change it? What evidence, what data would you want to see?
The voice of God.
I don't believe in God, but I do believe in... what I do believe in is that we need to keep looking at these facts. And what I said by experimenting is that if many countries are doing this now, we can follow that now in this level to see what happens, because we don't know the long-term effect. And I don't want to experiment with our laws and our legal system to see if that might be a good effect in a few years. We're not there yet. We need to do it slowly.
I have a question towards the Deputy Mayor of Gothenburg. We know for a fact that the queues for drug treatments are sky high. Drug-induced deaths are rising. We know for a fact that we have dangerous substitute drugs to replace the illegal ones. We know for a fact that these drugs are used because people don't want to be criminalized. Now, you are claiming that we should not experiment. However, should we continue to remain idle towards a problem that we know won't disappear? Is that not better than experimenting?
Absolutely not. We should never remain idle, and that's not. I never said that.
That's what we have been doing in this country.
We need to work extremely hard with the long-term issues, like I said before. All these things that I talked about: unemployment, housing, being a natural part of society, inclusion through the civil society. All these are long-term solutions that will have an effect. I believe that, short-term, you might see a different numbers based on if you decriminalize or if you legalize, but in a long-term way, I believe that the other ones are more lasting.
Well, what could be worse than having every single problem rising than actually trying to change something?
I want to change it in a long term, and not in a short.
So do I want a sustainable change, but now we're going towards a change where, as Ted explains, we are having turf wars on our streets, and I am from these streets, so I see them every day.
Yeah.
Is that not like? Isn't that better to start to actually change than remaining idle as we have, because we have a fear of if we actually start changing things, they might become worse. Whereas in countries where they have changed, the problems haven't become worse.
I agree with a lot of it. I agree that we should never remain idle. We should keep changing, but not in that way.
Okay.
If this is a health problem, we all can agree, and heroin is not healthy. And
I couldn't agree with you more.
Exactly. An alcoholist, you don't give him alcohol to get better. And that's the same thing with those medicines, like Suboxone, methadone. I think that, because the addict has a kidnapped brain from the drug. How do you say?
Sorry, I didn't quite understand.
You have an addict who has a kidnapped brain from the drug.
He's talking about dependency.
Yeah.
The kidneys dependency.
Yeah. How if you legalize the drug, to what conclusion do you come then? You don't help the addict. You just help him take the drug further. No? You understand?
What we're saying is that if you are an addict, we want you to go to a place in this city, maybe with a different politician running it, where you can be helped, and where and the psychiatrist and the social worker will sit you down and they will say, are you ready to go to a clinic to try to wean yourself off heroin? If not, we will give you clean needles. We will give you your methadone. We'll make sure you don't get hepatitis. We'll make sure you don't get HIV. We'll make sure you don't overdose. We're going to sit here while you take take your injection instead of you taking the injection on the street with dirty needles. And as has happened in Portugal, after a few months, 90% of those people went to clinics, and then the government helped them with the clinics, and that saved the government a lot of money as far as the cost of prisons, and it saved the breaking and entries.
I understand that, but that's a quick fix.
That's a what?
That's a quick fix.
Well, if it's a quick fix, that's even better.
But if you have cancer, you remove the cancer, yeah?
If you have cancer,
if you have cancer, you cure the cancer, you remove the cancer. The addiction is the same thing. Why don't remove the addiction and get them healthy?
I think that's exactly what the clinics are aimed at doing. But as he admitted, once you're an addict, you're always going to have that addictive personality. But hopefully, how many years have you been off now?
A little bit more than 20.
So, okay, you still say you've got an addictive personality, but this man is a very useful member of society. I'm looking forward to reading his document when I get on the plane.
Yeah, and he's sober.
So I'm sorry, I may be missing something.
Yeah, but he's sober.
And I'm not.
No, exactly.
Yeah, he's sober.
Yeah.
So,
Could I just clarify one thing? I'm not running the city. I'm in opposition. The majority parties, Social Democrats, are running the city. They agree with me in this issue, but I chose to be here and they didn't.
No, I appreciate that.
Okay, so Richard, you have to leave in about 3 minutes.
Just before I leave, I just wanted to say thank you very much for listening. Thank you particularly for all being willing to speak English for one person today, and for speaking so eloquently. And I'm sorry, they'll understand you for a minute and deal with your question, but thank you very much. Nice to talk to you all. Thank you.
Okay, Ali, you will
I'm really sorry. I have another meeting. We have an extra election.
Jag skulle bara vilja säga det att vi behöver hjälpas åt. Alltså vi behöver hjälpas åt. Vi har problem som är stort och som växer. Och jag tror att det är många vägar för att hjälpa människor. Och vi är en väg att försöka hitta en oas där det är helt rent och drogfritt. Och att det kan vara en väg för många att komma till oss. Men jag tror också att det är många som, de flesta skulle inte vilja vara bundna och bojade till en medicin eller drog eller vad det än är. Men att vi ska försöka hitta vägar ut ur det här. Att det inte är någonting som blir livslångt. Det är vad jag önskar att vi kan hjälpas åt med. Tack!
Jättekul att du kom.
Det var det för båda doktorer.
Jag ska kunna kommentera din fråga. I likhet mellan metadonbehandling och